If you're teaching listening in your language classroom or your professional skills classroom, that is a great opportunity to also teach empathy. The two go well together naturally. Active listening and empathy, or feeling for another person's situation, trying to step in someone else's shoes, trying to see things from their perspective. My name's Erin Lebax. Today I'd like to share 3 active learning exercises or activities you can use with your students or learners, but you can also use them to go deeper and go beyond passive listening to active listening that also includes concepts of empathy and understanding people's points of view. So let's get right into 3 exercises, but first I'll share a background character example that I like to share with my students as we talk about what does it mean to actively listen. When I first came across the Mandarin Chinese character for listening, I felt like my mind was exploding with realizations because their word for listening encompasses so much more than I think the English word listen does. If you have expertise in this language and the way characters are written, please let us know more in the comments. This is not my expertise area, this language, but I do want to share what I've learned about the Chinese character for listening and how that can influence us to teach empathy along with listening to our students or adult learners. You see all the different parts of this character that go beyond just hearing. Often we might think listening means to hear and pay some attention, but with the Chinese character, we get a holistic view on how listening really means bringing the whole self to pay attention and try to understand another person's situation, just like empathy asks us to do. So I'll walk through what I know about these parts of the symbol or character, and then we'll get into the 3 exercises you can try with your students. Of course, ear is included in the character, which we use to listen, but right below that you see the symbol for king. This is thought, to my understanding, to mean respect, that we respect the listener, the person we're listening to. We look to their message. We try to respect and absorb what they're saying. On the right side of the figure, we have the concept of maximum, listening, attending to something at the highest level we can. Then we get the symbol for eyes. Makes sense because when we listen, we also take in body language, movement, facial expressions, and even sometimes the environment for the context, right? So we're using our eyes to listen and learn as well. Below that, we have the number 1, the horizontal line, suggesting one focus, one mind, one self, using all of our senses to pay attention to what we're listening to. And then finally, the concept of heart, bringing into listening that we want to feel and try to put our mind and heart with the experience of who we're listening to, and maybe even get a little bit at their thoughts, their emotions, and their experiences. So with that in mind, let's get into these 3 image-based ways to practice active listening with some of this holistic, empathetic listening worked in. Here's the first picture I often might use with students. I found this online. The credit is there because they work Alamy into the picture, and I put letters on here because for this exercise, I would ask students 2 levels of questions. First, factual, maybe vocabulary-based questions if you're teaching English. Secondly, deeper questions that get into another person's thoughts and empathy. For example, for the first round, I might ask, who is exercising? And students need to say B, or put B in the chat if you're online. I might say, who is talking on the phone? Those would work well if we're studying verbs, exercising, talking, right? I could teach colors if I wanted to. Who is wearing yellow? Who is wearing purple? Many different ideas for that factual kind of information. But then we can go deeper and ask questions like, who might be on a date? Who might be having an argument? who might be in a hurry, and we're starting to think about other people's experience. So quick review before we go on to the second picture. We can look at two levels of questions, more external, factual, and then more internal, where we have to speculate, empathize, put ourselves in their shoes. If you're doing this in a classroom where you're practicing English specifically, I ask the first questions, but then I encourage students to ask their own questions, which can be a fun way to bring in practice speaking and also more of that analysis. Examples just to leave you with of factual types of questions and more empathy-based questions for this first activity using active listening to teach empathy. Let's go on to activity number 2, where we're using this set of photos now that are clearly more about people's emotions. So same thing, I would start with fact-based questions. Maybe we are learning about the body. Who has their hands up? Who has their hands over their ears? Who is smiling? Who is winking? Maybe colors, who is wearing a yellow sweater? Who is wearing a red shirt, etc. But then we get into these empathy-based questions where we imagine another person's experience, and we could say, who feels like it's too noisy where they are? Who is excited about something? Who is nervous or worried about something? We might not all pick the same options for those, which then can lead to a good discussion in English if you're teaching language, or if you're in a communication skills professional setting. You can use pictures like this or even more professional images and talk about what they might be feeling or experiencing. So I usually ask first questions about who might be surprised, who might be excited, and then I take on the persona of the person and I say things like, I feel overwhelmed, and ask people to put in the chat box or say aloud or write on a paper D or E or whoever they think might have said, I feel overwhelmed. All right, so 2 levels there. You can also have, of course, have students create their own questions after you've modeled creating your own. That's kind of a double empathy where they have to imagine the experience enough to create a question as well as answer questions about people. All right, our third and final activity here is about using active learning to think about other people's perspectives and points of view. And the way I like to do this is to choose an image and then choose 2 different points of view of people who would interact with what's in the image. So here I might choose a nurse point of view and a patient point of view. In another topic, I might choose a car mechanic and a customer, or a restaurant server and a customer, or a teacher and a student, or an attorney and a judge, right? So we'll look at 2 points of view, and I'll ask questions from those speakers' points of view. So if I'm being the nurse, I might say, I would use this to give an injection. People can type in B. This kind of thing is great if you choose an image that relates to the field your students are studying, because then you can do that vocabulary too. But then when I come back and model the patient, I might say, for that same question of B, I might say, I hope this isn't going to hurt. Now I'm getting in the head of the patient. So let's take a look. We can first ask point of view number 1, in this case a nurse, identifying these objects. Secondly, from the patient's point of view, and that allows our students and our discussion to really get into how different people experience the same ideas or the same topics. So quick wrap up, you can talk about outside or inside questions. You can talk about thoughts, feelings, experiences, or you can set up 2 different points of view. All of these use visuals, all of these use listening, but that second layer is where you also get to help teach empathy and how to understand another person's perspective. Thank you so much for watching. I'd love to hear how it went for you if you tried something like this. Please let me know in the comments, and have a great day and a wonderful class.